Welcome to the Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva, and today we hope to get some insight on what athletic directors do at the college level. Our guest today is Don Harnum, and he's the athletic director at Rider University. Welcome, Don.
Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, no problem. So where I usually start out with my guests is where did you go to college?
Yeah. I went to Susquehanna University, which is a small private school in central Pennsylvania, and played college basketball.
Oh, okay, great. And so now, what's the process that you took after college to become the athletic director at Rider University?
Well, that's a great question, and one I get asked all the time. And you know, we have a new sports management major at Rider, and I get asked that all the time by the students. And I wish I had this well thought out plan that I could share with them on how do you do this. I didn't have a plan, but there was a method to the madness. I did teach high school for 1 year, and I realized that the only reason I was teaching was so I could get to 3 o'clock so I could coach the basketball team. And then I had an opportunity to get a graduate assistantship, and I decided to, I didn't particularly care for teaching, mostly the Bell system, didn't want to be on that Bell system the rest of my life. So I went and got an MBA, knowing that if coaching didn't work out, I had something else to fall back on outside of education.
Gotcha.
But like any young person, you know, I got into coaching, loved coaching, had a great passion for it, was fortunate to have some success with Kevin Bannon at both the College of New Jersey and at Rider, and had some success as a head coach at Rider. And like anybody else, I thought I was going to be the next Dean Smith or Bobby Knight, and focused on coaching. And unbeknownst to me, after 8 years of being the head coach, the athletic director at the time retired, and wow. The president called me in and asked me if I'd like to be the athletic director. So I can't say I had a plan to go for it. I reluctantly accepted it. I accepted it on an interim basis at first, not knowing if I was going to miss coaching too much.
Yeah.
But as it worked out, I couldn't be happier that I took it. I did coach for almost 20 years, and wow. Being the athletic director is a little bit larger role of responsibility that I've embraced. It took me a year or two to actually embrace it because it was so different than what I did have. But, to say that I had a master plan to eventually, by a certain age, become an athletic director, no, I didn't. I'm a big believer that if you do a good job in whatever job you have, whether it's the lowest person on the totem pole or whatever, people recognize your effort, your enthusiasm. And I'm fortunate to have been promoted from the low man on the totem pole in the basketball office to the associate head coach, to the head coach, to the athletic director, all because people recognize that I care, that I'm going to do a good job, I have enthusiasm, I'm organized, and I've been lucky to have been promoted without really ever a job interview.
So now, how many years at Rider University have you been there?
Believe it or not, I'm celebrating my 25th year this year.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
If you would have told me that, 15, 20 years ago, that I'd be there 25 years, I would have told you you're crazy. But things happen, and the Rider has always treated me great, and I've really enjoyed my time there and some of the things we've been able to accomplish.
So now, what are the duties of an athletic director?
Well, the good news, and I think what's attractive to me and helped me make my transition from coaching, is you're still in the business of sports, and you're still in the business of people. There's so many duties. There's no 2 days that are alike. And that's attractive to me. I tend to get bored quickly.
Sure.
I need challenges. I certainly have my challenges every day. But I look at it as, there's an official job description that I can certainly get into, but then there's more than that. I'm kind of the keeper of the student-athlete experience. I want our students to have a good experience at Ryder if they're going to be an athlete. So I want them to be treated well. I want them to have great facilities. I want them to have access to the best coaches. I want them to be competitive, because part of being a Division I university and making sure individuals have a good experience in the athletics is you have to win. You have to put a competitive product out there, in whatever sport it is. So when I did leave coaching, it's not like I left the sports world.
Right.
I don't think I ever could have left coaching and gone to sell vacuum cleaners. Right. So it helped my transition that every day I deal with student athletes. I deal with coaches. I'm dealing with athletic issues. They might be different issues than the coaches are dealing with, but it still is very similar.
So now, how many sports are at Ryder University?
We have 20 sports. We have 10 men's, 10 women's, and so you got your handful. We have 355 student athletes on most years, and 19 head coaches that I manage and guide and supervise, and there's a lot of moving parts, from travel to recruiting, scheduling.
And that's all part of your department?
Oh yeah. I'm fortunate that I have a very good staff who handles each individual element, but it all falls under me. And
so now, how does an athletic director get involved in? Do you have swimming at the school?
We do.
So someone who didn't grow up swimming or anything like that, other than recreational swimming, let's say, how do you get involved with knowing all about that sport?
Quite honestly, I don't know all about that sport, and I don't claim to. I know enough to be literate, to know what I'm seeing and to deal with issues, but it's unfair to think that any athletic director is going to be an expert in every sport. I don't think you have to be. I think you have to be good with people. You have to know sports in general.
Right.
You have to know the way coaches think, athletes think, parents think, and you have to know enough about the sport to be literate in conversation. But I don't claim, I'm not trying to coach every sport. I'm not. The key is, if you hire the right people,
you'll be fine.
You'll be fine. So,
That's what you do, right?
How do I get literate in sports or in swimming? I hired a great swim coach, and that really helps.
That brings me to the next question then. How do you find these very good coaches in the different sports? What's the process that you take to find these type of coaches?
Most of our full-time positions, we do a national search, but we're also a regional institution. So I think you have to find somebody that has, good recruiting ties in your area. We're not all of a sudden going to start recruiting Arizona really well. So to hire somebody that has no East Coast recruiting ties might not make sense. But I think, when you do those searches, you look for somebody that has had success. It doesn't always have to be success at the Division I level. I've been very successful hiring some coaches that at the Division II or the Division III level had a tremendous amount of success, maybe with even less resources than they're going to have Division I.
Wow.
And I look at it and say, all right, if they can be successful here with minimal resources, we're Division I maybe give them a little bit more. I bet you they can get it done here.
Now, what are some of the schools that Ryder University plays against?
Well, we're in the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, which is a very, very competitive mid-major conference. It includes Iona, Manhattan, Fairfield, Marist, Canisius, Niagara. It's a basketball-first league. The primary emphasis is basketball, but it's competitive across the board. Every one of our sports has an automatic qualifier into the NCAA tournament. And that's a big sell. Being Division I, having access to the national tournaments, if you're successful, is a big sell for coaches and student athletes.
So now, to get into, because the show is called Secrets of College Planning, it's really based in the parents' hands of these students and student athletes that are at high school. What are some of the things that they need to do to come to a school like Ryder University in any particular sport? It could be in general.
The first thing is you got to be good. I mean, we're Division I, so you have to be at that level. There's a lot of people that want to be Division I, but they might not be that level. And I have a Division III background as a player, and had a great experience there. So there's all different levels, and the Division III experience can be a great one too. Go to a level, the one piece of advice I always give to parents is go to a level where you can be successful, not where you can just survive. And a lot of times parents do have a little bit of an inflated view of where their son or daughter can be successful. And I try to tell people, don't make ego decisions, make realistic decisions, because at the end of the day, if you have a positive experience, if you're part of a team that has a chance to be successful. And one of the things that you hear a lot about today is youth sports. And I think one of the things that we've kind of lost in society now is, why do you play? And if the answer is not for the love of the sport, you're doing the wrong thing. You play for the love of the sport. And if your son or daughter ends up being good enough to grab the attention of college recruiters, so be it. There's certainly ways, and we can discuss that later, about how you do that. But that should not be the primary reason that you're chasing the game when your son or daughter's 8, 9, 10, 11 to try to get a scholarship.
Yeah.
Play for the love of the game, and then if that scholarship is available, that's gravy, that's a bonus, that's a blessing. But don't chase that scholarship at 9 years old.
So now, how does a high school student know if they're a Division I type athlete?
Well, there's so many different ways to identify that now. There's travel teams, there's all different recruiting services, scouting services. But what I say, unless you're from the middle of nowhere and you never leave that little town, if you're good, we will find you. It's really that simple. There's some things that you can do to create exposure. Some of them are just money makers. They're trying to get you to pay, a parent to pay to expose their son or daughter. Sometimes those work, sometimes they don't. But if you're a good athlete at a young age, you're going to be on a travel team. You're going to get to certain tournaments where college coaches go to. There are certain ways to grab coaches' attention, either through a letter or an email or a highlight video. But one of the things I always used to tell parents or coaches is, don't just send me the highlight tape, because, no offense, Anthony, I could make you look like a great soccer player in a highlight tape. But I want to see, the highlight tape might grab the attention of the coach, but they're going to want to see game film. They're going to want to know where you're playing. So an email from a coach or a parent saying, hey, my son or daughter is interested in your school, and they're going to be playing in the following tournaments this summer. I hope someone from you and your staff can watch.
Gotcha.
Most of the time, the coach is going to take a look.
So now, a lot of questions come from a lot of the parents that are out there. And one of the questions that always comes up for a Division I program is, it's all about the sport, it's nothing about the academics. What does Rider University do to combat, that particular question? It's all about sport, and the academics means nothing.
Well, you've given me 30 minutes. I could talk about 2 hours on this subject. I really think that perception of college athletics is really unfair. I know it exists. There might be a handful of schools. It's like anything else in society, that a couple of abuses here and there, maybe at the highest level, forms everyone's opinion and everyone's perception that that's the way it is across the board. But when you take a deeper look, you'll find that at schools like Rider and most schools in our league, that is just not the case. We have a higher graduation rate of our student athletes at Rider than we do of the general student population.
Wow.
We have a graduation success rate that is close to 90%. Our men's basketball program, for example, has not had, since I got on campus in 1989, we have never had a player play 4 years and not graduate on time. And those are all things that, unfortunately, they don't grab the headlines as much as a scandal at Miami. or a scandal at Ohio State, those things. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you there are not abuses.
Right.
What causes the abuses most of the time is the win at all cost mentality. But if we've created that as athletic directors, as presidents, we've created some of that because we pay coaches an exorbitant amount of money, particularly at a higher level than Ryder.
Sure.
We expect to win. We cave into pressures of alumni, pressures from the media. All of those pressures create behaviors sometimes that we're not really proud of.
Gotcha.
So at Ryder, we try to keep the right perspective. I make no bones about it. We want to win. But there's a lot more to the evaluation process of coaches. Are you doing things the right way? We're at a level where I firmly believe we can win and do things the right way with good people in the program, with a commitment to academics, academic support. You can do it the right way. I don't know if every school can, because the pressures to win sometimes override the pressure to do things the right way.
Interesting. So you said that there were 20 sports at Rider University. What are some of the obscure sports that people would be out there going, geez, I can actually go and play that at a college?
Yeah, we're pretty mainstream. We have tennis and golf and swimming and track and field, men's and women's soccer, men's and women's basketball, wrestling. We're nationally competitive in wrestling.
Wow.
Baseball, softball. So we don't have any of the real obscure ones. We pretty much have the mainstream ones.
Oh, that's fantastic. And do all of them have a scholarship opportunity, or is there just money at some and scholarship at others, or how does it work?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's across the board. I mean, we're a fully funded basketball program, which every school in our league is.
Right.
And other than outside of basketball, we do what is called stacking for financial aid. And one of the things I think is so important for parents to understand early and often is most of the time there's more scholarship money available for good students than there are good athletes. There's a perception that because we're Division I or a school is Division I, that every kid on that roster is on a full scholarship.
Yeah.
And that is just so untrue outside of the major sports of basketball and football. Very few student athletes are on a full scholarship. So we'll stack our aid by recruiting an individual that's a very good student, and the school will give them a merit scholarship based on their academic performance. Then we throw some athletic aid on top of it, and that's how we package it.
Gotcha.
Most of the time, parents think that
Everybody's on
a full ride, and I try to tell them, like, hey, it might be more important that your son or daughter is a really good student than a really good swimmer or basketball player, because there might be more money available on the academic side of the house than there is the athletic.
So it could come out to a full ride depending on how good they are academically.
Yes.
To work out the numbers.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Once you combine them both, that becomes an attractive financial aid package.
So now, how early would a parent have to get their son or daughter to recognize a school like Rider University? Is it early in the process at the high school level, or do they start senior year of high school?
No, I think senior year, Anthony, is a little late. I'm not the trend has been earlier and earlier. I mean, you probably saw in the news a year or so ago, UCLA took a commitment from a 7th grader.
Oh.
I'm not a fan of that or a proponent of that, but I think around the sophomore year, you got to start, at least thinking about it, trying to determine what level, maybe thinking a little bit of exposure. One of my pet peeves, though, is, there's opportunities for exposure, club teams, AAU teams.
Right.
I think one of the reasons we've fallen behind some sports, internationally, like basketball is the great example, is in this country, I think we're more concerned about exposing kids, expose them for that scholarship, right, as opposed to teaching them. What's the end game? Let's get better. Let's coach. Let's make them better. we tend to want to play 3 games a day in front of college coaches to hopefully grab somebody's attention, where maybe if we spent 2-3 hours a day practicing and working on the skill level, it would be easier to grab somebody's attention. You don't have to fly all over the country to do so.
So some parents are putting a lot of money into their kids to make them good athletes.
Yeah.
They're spending thousands of dollars to send their kids to California, China, wherever they're going.
Yep. All in the name of exposure.
All in the name of exposure.
And
so what you're saying is try to harness that more of practicing and working out and doing more with a certain team than to go out and just spend thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I think parents have a heck of a dilemma right now, because it's a little bit of you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. We start them very early. Do we start them too early? If you don't start them early enough, do you get left behind? But how many 8-9-year-olds are really ready for organized sports?
Yeah.
But yet that's what we do with them. So, I'm a parent and I'm fighting the same thing with young kids, is you have to have a balance. And we'll go back to what I said earlier, is why are you playing? And I hate to see when parents just are chasing that scholarship, because I always say, well, what did you spend to get that scholarship? Because chances are you're only going to get a partial scholarship.
Yeah.
And you think about it, flying to California and hotels and meals for some of these crazy travel, we're flying kids to Las Vegas, 13-year-old boys, to play in a summer camp in Las Vegas, all over. What did you spend to get that scholarship?
Sure.
And as long as people have the right, play for the love of the sport, play to get better, it's still about player development, and the player development doesn't stop when they get to college. It's not an end game. Our challenge is, hey, I'm the first one to admit, we're not Duke, we're not North Carolina, we're not Michigan. But yet, at the end of the day, if we're going to be really good, we might be on the field or the court or the pool with them. So we have to be good. So how do we do it? We recruit good students that we see potential in that might need some finishing, whether it's strength, maturity, training. And one of the things that we really sell at Ryder is player development. We're not going to get the finished product.
Yeah.
We're not walking into a gym just picking the very best player out like Duke is.
Right.
But at the end of the day, we need a great player. So we have to take a kid that maybe is a little smaller, a little underdeveloped, maybe a little immature, but then we have to do a great job with them of getting them to understand success at this level. And we've been fortunate to have had a lot of success doing that.
So you depend a lot on your coaches.
Absolutely.
And what are the coaches doing to entice kids to come to Rider University?
Well, I think you have to sell the school, and we have a great location. We're attractive to a lot of different demographics, because we're in the middle of the action between New York and Philadelphia, but yet we're not right in a major city. So I think we can be attractive to a lot of different people. We're Division I. It's a very nice, self-contained, pretty campus that has a great academic reputation. But then you also have to sell, as a coach, yourself, your sport, your vision, your accomplishments, facilities. All of those things come into the equation. And one of the things, since I've been the athletic director, we've tried to really upgrade our facilities so that when people come on campus, it looks like a Division I facility, and we're going to treat you like a Division I athlete. That stuff is really important to make a good first impression.
Yeah. So now a lot of the athletes, are they coming to the school and visiting the school as an official visit, that kind of stuff? Or
we do both, and we're fortunate enough in our location. I mean, if you draw a 3-4 hour radius around Ryder, even though we do leave to recruit, we don't really need to. So how many people does that attract, and can they drive in to see it? So an unofficial visit is they come, see the campus, meet with the coach. An official visit is when we host them overnight.
Right.
48 hours, they get to know the players. And people make the decision a lot of times. It's, we all try to sell facilities and academic programs, but a lot of times it comes down to the trust in the coach's vision, the coach's track record. It's easy to sit there and say what you're going to do, but if you've been there 5 or 6 years, some parents are like, what have you done? And you sell that vision about, hey, we've had a number of players go on and do what you want to do.
Right.
You know, qualify for the NCAA, qualify for nationals, play in the NBA, whatever that it is, we've done it. So, and that's where the coaches have to really be good at selling themselves, selling the vision for their program.
What are some of the things that, you know, some parents would say, well, you know, I send my son or my daughter to the school and that year the coach leaves. What do you say to parents about that, you know, changing coaches? Because that happens with a lot of different schools.
Yeah, it does. And, you know, it can happen. I tell the coaches, you know, if you have a reputation for jumping around every 3 or 4 years, that's not going to help you. But, you know, we're fortunate that I have a number of coaches that are on year 10, 15, and so you can sell stability. And it might not be the most glamorous thing to sell in recruiting, but stability is important. But, you know, you also tell the coaches or the student athletes, like, hey, you gotta pick a school that you're comfortable at, because the coach could change. While the coach is a big part of the sell, that could
Look
happen.
at the school as well.
Yeah, and you know, we try to keep, you know, I love programs that are successful and have had a stable coach for all that long. But you know, sometimes if you're a mid-major and your coaches are really successful, there might be some greener pastures for them, and that's okay. You know, if they've done a good job for us and they earn that bigger contract at a larger, more well-known school, I'm okay with that, because that means they did what they were hired to do, you know, for Rider.
Yeah. So they were winning there. They just want to move on.
Yeah,
And get
so it's
bigger
hard to
for
begrudge
themselves.
them. You know, it's hard to really begrudge. Hey, that's the American way.
Sure.
You know.
Well, it's coming to the end of our show. So usually what I ask my guests is, what do you want to leave the parents with? What type of advice could you give the parents on college and, you know, what they should be doing?
Well, I think I've touched on it earlier. Play for the love of the game. And as a parent, I think your job is to be balanced in the whole equation. You know, I think we've all dealt with parents that are balanced and some that are not balanced. And as the adult in the equation, particularly with young people who are 17, 18, 19, that might not always make the mature, rational decision, it's the parent's job to make sure that they're balanced as well. And while I'm never going to tell you the sport is not important, because I'm in athletics, the sport is important.
Sure.
But there are a lot of important things: the academic well-being, the social well-being, and I think it's just the parent's job to make sure that things are kept in the proper perspective. Very few people are going to go on and be professionals. So maximize the most you can out of a college experience.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Don, for coming. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
And thank you for watching the Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva. Until next time.